Okay, so for this example, we're going to talk about how to go through each article. So the first article, or the first set of articles I want you guys to go through is the sacrifice article. Okay, so let's read the prompt for a sec. It says, read the PDFs on Greek religion, Greek religion, sacrifice, and sacrifice and overview. So these two resources are found in research and summary resources page of the class blog. Okay. So we're going to go to the class blog, we're going to look at the summary resources, and then we're going to find these two articles. Then we're going to explain the different kinds of sacrifice found in early Greek culture and throughout the Bronze Age. Okay, so that's our first task. And the second one is why was sacrifice important for these cultures? So we're going to figure out why were they important. And then what's something new we learn? We're going to make sure that our response is about 5 sentences. And I'm going to walk you through how we might go about finding some of these answers. Okay, so explain the different kinds of sacrifice found in Greek culture. We'll tackle that one first. So I'm going to go to the class blog here, and let's just pretend I'm doing this for the first time. So I'm going to click Odyssey, and it comes up with the week 4. I'm going to go over to the left side, and on the left side I'm going to click Research and Summary Resources. Okay. So once I click this, I've got 2 main articles here that I want to go to. The first one I'm going to read is we're going to try and read Greek religion and sacrifice. This one's a little bit challenging. Let me make the display a little bigger. Okay, so this article kind of talks about sacrifice, and what do we know? We know it's further consideration. So it's talking about a conversation that's probably already happened. Okay. So it opens in talking about this guy's outstanding summary of literature and practices in world religions, and different kinds of difficulties with interpreting. So interpreting the kinds of violent symbolic practices. So the main issue here is how do we interpret these practices? Is something negative? What's the lens in which we're going to see human sacrifice? So that's kind of the context. And so we may want to keep reading about what the scholar says about human beings located in biology. The next paragraph seems to talk about this fascinating study of sacrifice from Walter Burkert. Okay, so interesting guy, and he talked about Greek religion, so Greek sacrifice practices, so that may be interesting. So let's read this. Burkert sought to understand the persistence of archaic survivals of religion. So how something continues on and archaic, that's from the past. How does religion survive? It's been kind of an old practice. How do they survive? And especially how do these practices of sacrifice survive in Greek culture? Okay. So we'll keep reading about what he says about noticing that on the one hand, sacrificial myth and ritual accompanied major religious dimensions of Greek culture. So that's on the one hand. There's also this sort of Paleolithic, so this activity of handling bones and of the animal victims. So on the one hand, there's this religious dimension, but it also is kind of like a hunt. Okay, that's interesting. So if we scroll down, we read this critical view, the capacity of hunting cultures to ritualize immense human aggressions. This may be a bit confusing, so we're going to continue to read on. In Burkert's view, the dramatic scenes and emotions associated with the killing of animals after careful planning and intense physical and mental exertions resulted in new process of perception and reflection, or the creation of mythologies. Okay, so we're a little lost. All right, so dramatic scenes, a little confusing, killing of animals, something about the kill or the hunt and the sacrificial ritual is what Burkert is getting at. Let's see if we can read on and figure out what he's talking about. Context clue, in other words. Maybe this will help us to figure out what we're talking about. All right, we go here. The hunting ritual gave rise to the full range of articulations. Sayings, perhaps? Really what he means here is expressions that we understand to be mythic or symbolic. So basically, the hunting ritual gave rise to religious practices, is kind of what he's saying. The naming of the master of animals, the songs and prayers that address the prey, the gestures surrounding the kill, the care of the bones, the narration of the ritualized hunt as a sequence of events, and the eventual articulation of social codes and honors when people pray to each other. And then we talked about eating the innards, those going to the priest first. And then, so that would be the honors due to the master of animals, are all focused in this act of killing. So what's really interesting here is that for Burckhardt, he sees sacrifice itself as an extension of the hunt. So the Paleolithic hunt became ritualized and became its own religious practice of sacrifice. So Burckhardt doesn't really see it originating in the gods. He sees the start of sacrifice in the hunt of Paleolithic man. So that's interesting. So that may be one view we have so far. Okay. So far we've got this view that maybe for Greek culture, really the ritualization of the hunt is the source of sacrifice, or is sacrifice. Okay, that's interesting. Let's see if we can read and figure out other kinds of sacrifice from the other article. Okay. I would encourage you, when you're actually doing this on your own, to finish reading that article and then move on to the sacrifice and overview. Okay, sacrifice and overview. So this is the second article you're going to read. Prayer is a form of communication with a deity or other spiritual beings. So this talks about the idea that it's kind of a communication. Words are addressed to a deity, usually offer praise or seek guidance, blessing, forgiveness, fertility, victory, protection. And so it's like prayer, sacrifice is a form of communication. So rather than Burckhardt, who sees sacrifice as kind of organized around the hunt and about killing animals and about the sacred practice of slaughtering the animal, here, this view seems to say that sacrifice is really related to communicating with the gods or deities. And they point to the fact that sacrifice is to make holy. But rather than distinct from prayer, sacrificial offerings include objects of value as symbolic significance to the gods to earn their favor. So rather than prayer, there's these actual objects that are involved. Okay, let's keep reading on. Those in blood sacrifice experience a sense of awe, danger, and exaltation because they're daring to approach the gods who create, sustain, and destroy life. So they're getting near this divine God. Okay, that's interesting. Not really sure where we can fit that in yet. Okay. So we keep reading about how sacrifice was practiced. Maybe there's something in here, but I'm going to leave you to go ahead and continue to read that. So we've got these two ideas: sacrifice located in the ritual, and sacrifice located in the hunting ritual, and sacrifice is a form of communication. So these two ideas are being expressed in the articles. So we may want to talk about that when we talk about explaining the different kinds of sacrifice found in Greek culture. And why was it important for these cultures? Well, let's think. Maybe we should read back here and see why people might do this. Well, in blood sacrifice, the buildup of attention prior to blood sacrifice gives way to festive sense of triumph and relief. Maybe your people are doing this in order to feel, a sense of triumph and to feel emotional relief. Maybe they're doing that here because their morale is strengthened by the killing as a group. So they act in this godlike way of taking life, and maybe that's helping them to bond together and to feel a sense of accomplishment. That's kind of one argument this text is making. Okay. So that may be part of our answer. And then what is something new we learned from this article? Well, maybe it's all new. Maybe there's some other phrases as we read down. Maybe we learned about the Egyptian practices of bull, or the practices of sacrifice and bulls being sacred to the Egyptians. So I would encourage you to keep reading, and the last question is fairly simple. You just find something that is new to you in the article. Okay, so that takes us through sacrifice, and you're going to do a similar thing for doing the arete. All right, and that's it.